Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
This is your host, Alicia Debrell from Insight Media. Today's guest is Steven Strasburg. He helps people and companies protect their most important assets. This is done by limiting the exposure of personal, private client, or corporate secrets from cybersecurity risks. So, without further ado, I want to welcome Steven Strasburg to the show. Hi, Steven. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you.
So, I want to jump right into this. So, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself and your business experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I've done a lot with robotics, antenna design with NASA, then software, including farming applications like chicken apps, and now a lot of cybersecurity, protecting everyone's assets.
That's definitely an intriguing world and well needed. So what made you veer towards the cybersecurity world?
Well, I found that most of what I was creating and other people was just leaving an open door for anyone that, wanting to get into people's applications. For me, it was like creating an app to improve egg production in chickens and leaving the door open for foxes to come in whenever they wanted.
So do you help large corporations or do you just help the small entrepreneur?
Well, we help companies of all sizes and variety of applications. So whenever there's anyone that you see with a security guard or anything like that, that's kind of who we would help. Anyone that wants to actually protect something that's important to them.
Okay. So, and that's all the way across the board as far as online stuff, correct?
Absolutely. So everything from your phones to your laptops to even special applications when you leave out of town to protect more sensitive information like bank accounts, lines to your bank accounts and stuff like that.
That's definitely important to protect. So what do you find the three biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to their internet security?
Ooh, there's a lot of those, but I'd say the top three are basically that people don't know what they don't know. And, people have a lot of abilities for people to come in and kind of get their information. So even though a device is new or anything like that, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's secure. It's kind of a tough world out there because you have to do a little extra research. The Internet of Things and things along those lines that you might get to be in your home or anything like that, it's actually easily accessible to the outside world. Google indexes webcams, for example. So if you have a webcam in your house, it's easily accessible by virtually anyone. Even secure paths can be compromised if you use an unsecure device or unsecure application is introduced into it. So, really security is a lifestyle. It's kind of like locking your door when you leave home. And, it won't stop from big things like someone kicking your door down or driving a car into it. But right now, the internet is full of a lot of people just checking to see if the front door is locked or not.
Are you telling me that somebody can access my webcam?
Absolutely. So Google indexes all of these different webcams, and you can just search for a specific model of webcam. And so even a baby monitor, I can actually find a baby monitor, and then I actually see if your baby is asleep or not. And so that seems pretty innocent. Who would want to see your baby sleep at night? But, from that, I can extrapolate a lot of other information. Are you home? Are you out of town? Things along those lines. So there's a lot more information can be extracted from simple stuff that we take for granted.
That is creepy. To know that somebody could access a baby camera, even my webcam, I had no idea. So what are some of the devices that aren't necessarily secure? Can you give me a couple examples of those?
The Internet of Things is full of a lot of neat toys, and virtually none of them are secure. Ultimately, heart monitor devices is a great example. A lot of people say, well, who cares if someone knows what my heartbeat is? But, whether you're having sexual relations with someone or anything like that, your heart rate is going up. even your insurance company can utilize that information because it's all out there. No one's stopping it. No one's protecting it. No one's keeping it safe. And from that, your insurance premiums or anything along those lines could be done to determine if your personal lifestyle. So it's just kind of interesting. Whenever we introduce something to our life, we really have to know what its impact is. So it's certainly an interesting world out there.
Definitely. I had no idea. This is really intriguing. So what's ransomware and how does somebody become a victim of that? I've heard about it, but can you go into more details?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a cyber extortion. So, ultimately people or companies can be directly targeted from a variety of different ways. You can think of, opening up a link or attachment, or even a non-targeted way. So if someone goes to a fake site, fills out a form, sign up for this, put in a password. And a lot of people use the same password for all these different things on the internet. So, when you put in your password to sign up for something, are they using that for 15 other common sites like your Gmail, your bank, different things like that? Ultimately, once they gain access to something important or to your computer, how much access to your life, how are they going to access it? And then once they get in, they can actually block you out from your computer, or they could even decrypt the information to your computer in a way that you can't access it until they give you a code to decrypt it. And they might say, look, you have 3 hours or 12 hours to give me 500 or 1,000 or whatever amount of money that they say. Otherwise, we're going to delete the information, or we're not going to let you have access to your corporate data. We've completely stopped this access. So give us money or you're not getting it. And so if you give it to them, are they going to give you the code? If you give it to them too fast, are they going to give you a code? Ultimately, you'll have to pay for Bitcoins or something like that and pay to these people. So, if you don't do something conscious, you're open up to a lot of that. We see a lot of ransomware coming from North Korea right now, and it's some coming from China, but overwhelmingly North Korea is trying to fund their country, any way that they can. So it's pretty bad because you're funding some awful things right now. So if you don't protect yourself, it's various forms of terrorism that you're supporting, and it's just going to encourage them to go on to the next person and see what they can take from someone else.
Okay, so that totally brings me into my next question. Is there some kind of separate software to protect your computer or personal info from ransomware? Is there something that you could download or buy, or how does it work?
So ultimately, ransomware locks devices. It's, access to information or encrypts the information itself until someone pays. So it's kind of like, how do you protect someone from coming into your house? There's a variety of different ways, but ultimately there's software and hardware that can assist humans to keep their information safe. There's different ways of backing up information, keeping it in the cloud, keeping it in secure places. But ultimately, it's a lifestyle with where you're going to browse and on what devices. I know a number of people who never browse the internet on anything other than a separate computer that has no personal information on it. And I know a lot of people in the field that never put any apps or anything like that on their phones just because they don't know how well they're keeping up with the security patches. We heard about a lot of people getting their phones broken into by the flashlight app a few years ago. And you're like, the flashlight app seems pretty innocent, but it was a straight way into their phones. And that was a straight artery right into all of their life.
Okay, you just scared me because I have the flashlight downloaded on my phone.
They put on the security patches and they're much more conscious of stuff that they leave standard on your phone.
All right, so talk to me about the dark web and How do you know if your company's info is being sold on dark web or your personal info?
That is a great question. Ultimately, as a society becomes more advanced, they should become more private and not more public. So anonymity is a result from a free country accepting the basic human rights of that. So the dark web gives people the opportunity to browse, buy, and discuss anonymously. With that said, Wikipedia says that about 1.2% of the dark web is hacking related. And it's one place that company information can be sold. Ultimately, if a hacker steals your information, they're good at hacking. It's not, they're not good at selling stuff. So that's where they go to allow other people to buy the information anonymously. There's actually websites out there that actually scour certain sites for, is your website on there? There's a whole list of different stuff where you can actually pay to get a whole list. And, some of those lists are really expensive. So certain banks will do it, LifeLock, stuff like that. They'll pay for this information. So they're paying hackers for their information to see if anyone that they know or love or care about or customers were compromised. So it's kind of an interesting way of funding these guys. It's saying, oh, shoot, well, I'm responsible for a lot of people. So did they get someone I know? So it's kind of an interesting way to go about it. But ultimately, the people that I know that were on those lists went random browsing and signed up with their email address, and they used the same password on various forms. And that information, they didn't do anything with it, but they put it on a big database and saved it. Funny enough, you end up on these lists.
Lesson learned. So can you give me some some example of what kind of damage that can result from somebody getting into your personal accounts from the dark web? Is it the same thing like ransomware? What's the difference? Or it could be used for?
So ultimately, the cost of the information is directly proportional to how sensitive it is to you. So, if it's 10,000 people's bank account information, passwords, and login, then that's going to be more expensive than just necessarily an email address or, some other information. So, it doesn't really matter if it's, how people get the information. Either they sell it through the dark web or got a form and they go directly at you. It's really important to kind of protect yourself from a lot of this stuff in just some safe manners. I mean, I give the example of locking your front door. It's obviously a little bit more complicated than that. But, ultimately being aware, going to trusted sites, and, we all go browsing and stuff like that. And it's just really important to have different virus protection. And also, it's generally just a good idea to use another laptop. I just get a, less than $200 laptop browsing through the internet. I use something that doesn't have any information associated to me. So it's not even a bad idea to just make up a random identity for just browsing and everything along those lines. So it's a lot of fun stuff you can do. You can make your alter ego or your imaginary friend that can actually be your saving grace. You don't mind if that information is stolen. So it's just a good way to protect yourself and everything along those lines.
So kind of like your own avatar.
Exactly. Anonymity is really an important thing. So a lot of people think, I've got nothing to fear. It's safety with numbers. But I'd say it's over 70% of U.S. Phones have been hacked. And it's the NSA. It's people that are really trying to get information. And, it's when you think about picking up your phone and you wonder whether or not the webcam is on and someone's looking at you using your own device, it's not okay. And, some people have naked photos of them or someone else on their phone, and no one wants to feel like all their stuff is shared with everyone. So it's interesting.
So can you tell me, what is some of the benefits of being able to tell your clients that your data is insured or secured, and how do you prove it?
Yeah. So security is more about education and awareness. So just like if someone put a security alarm, a physical security system with high walls, cameras, 24-hour guard showing physical protection is great. But, you can always invite someone past the security to compromise your belongings. But the risk is much lower for the most part. The security limitations and the guests are known by you. So, protecting clients' data is very similar. Monitoring networks with detection devices, ID departments, firewalls is only as good as the user's ability to not compromise the network, because I can have the greatest system in the world, but if people are opening links and allowing people in through the side door, there's nothing I'm going to be able to do to protect it. But ultimately, it's a big help to know that people aren't going to, download child porn on your computer and then the FBI kick down your door. It's very important to kind of ensure the integrity of stuff that ends up on your computers or your servers or things like that is actually yours. And the stuff that you do have hasn't been altered. If I went into a bank's web servers and I changed a few ones to sevens, and the integrity of all the data is destroyed, and their business is integrity, data integrity. So it's not hard to create havoc if people are in the very privileged areas.
Okay. If a company or a corporation hires you to help them be protected from cyber criminals that are out there, whether it be ransomware, whatever it may be, where do you start?
Yeah, I basically scan the network, check for hardware, software, open ports. So I find the versions and everything, and I see if everything's updated with security patches, and I try and gain access to the network by using exploits of either old security patches, open ports, or other easy methods. There's a whole playbook of stuff that's just low-hanging fruit. And ultimately, it's, you never know how exposed a network is until you actually make it inside. Sometimes it can be just a few minutes. Sometimes, it can take months. But a lot of times there's almost always some way to get in because of people leaving certain things exposed.
Okay. So you basically kind of use what the hackers would use to jump in. So how do you set them up so that they don't fall victim to these crimes?
Well, we eliminate the easy ways to access the network and their information. We make the employees aware of the systems, the best practices, and threats to the system. And also, people actually go the other direction and they actually pay hackers to break into their systems, called penetration testers. They actually go in, they break into the system, they see where the easy ways were to get in, and ultimately they give you a report. So you pay hackers to break into your system. Otherwise, malicious hackers will break in for free and not give you a report. So it's ultimately how proactive do you want to be? But, ultimately you have to go and do something to be proactive about making sure that your system is secure and eliminate the easy ways in.
So if you had one piece of advice to give a company or anybody basically to protect their assets, what would it be?
It'd be to back up your information in a safe place, not where you have your main information saved. So either on an external hard drive or in a different cloud location. Have a separate network or a device for browsing and for personal activity. So if it is compromised, it's not a big deal. It has nothing to do with your main private information. Close out and turn off anything that isn't in use. And ultimately just be aware of emails and different stuff that comes in. If it looks suspicious, you don't have to open every email. You don't have to click on every link. There's plenty of stuff that comes in that's not important, and it's easier to not open it and just know that it has nothing to do with you than worry. Even if it comes from a trusted person, if they just send you a link, they might have been compromised.
No, actually, I've heard of that happening. So there are big problems with protecting data. What is stopping most companies or people from getting help that they should?
Now in cybersecurity, they stress the most important thing is to make sure that you have top-down or buy-in at the top. So ultimately, if the software guy, if anywhere in the department is saying, look, I really understand the cybersecurity threat and issue, and I really want to protect it, and here are some steps. It's really tough to justify another cost without management knowing. And as information needs to be more and more secure, the cost kind of goes up. You have information that needs to go to banks. You have information that needs to go to hospitals or from hospitals. And all those have different requirements, HIPAA compliance and PCI-DSS compliance for banks. And ultimately, even doctors, a lot of times a doctor won't understand how the data that he has needs to be protected. You have people in such easy ways will buy hard drives off the internet, and it might be from a reseller. It might be, from first or third party, and it will not be wiped. It will still have information on it. And that's not any illegal means of getting information. A lot of people will take pictures of credit card numbers, and not just the front, the back also. And they don't always understand that some of the phones, they download apps that put their photos automatically on a reel that people can see on the internet. And so there's a lot of legal ways that people are able to get information, without actively hacking into your private devices or software or databases. So right now, the analogy isn't that you have to teach people how to lock the door or buy or pay for a security company. The analogy is really, if you were going camping, how much diligence you have to take into consideration when you're camping with putting away all the food, all the stuff that had food, all the stuff. If you're in bear country, you have to hang it from a tree. It's a lot more in depth, and it's not necessarily all intuitive. So when data is actually very important and the cost is really high, if you lose that information, the whole company's reputation is on the line, not just with what is lost, but how much is lost and how did people get it. And just even being able to know that it was stolen is really, really tough. And so right now, one of the biggest issues is the management actually understanding the threats that are out there and to the degree of severity of the liability with losing it for the company's reputation, as well as the compliance associated with it in either a personal setting or a financial or medical record setting. So that's really kind of the big issue.
That makes sense. And so people can steal your information and you not even know it.
Absolutely. And it happens every day. Every single week, every single day, there's more and more ways that people are using that you wouldn't even think about to take people's information. And, the only way I find out about it is different forums where people report it. And it's a lifestyle having to keep up with a lot of that stuff, but it's not very intuitive. And as new devices come out, new security features, there's new interesting ways to go around it. And there's just as many ways of breaking in as there are security features.
Makes sense. So I have one more question. And it's the most important. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you for your services, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, they can go to my website, www.castle-strasburg.com. And ultimately, you can call up and we can see what we can do to help you and get you a more secure lifestyle, or kind of make you aware of, where the vulnerabilities are in your life and how to improve it and go forward from there.
Okay. First of all, I want to say that this interview was great. I loved the information. I'm a little nervous about my webcam and my passwords now, but I'll have to change all that.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, definitely. You got to be careful nowadays. But I really appreciate all of the valuable information that you shared with everybody. And I would love to have you back on the show again. This was a great interview, lots of good information. And it's made me think twice. So I'm sure it's going to make everybody out there that's listening twice think twice too about their methods and how they use the internet.
Absolutely. I sure hope so. Thanks again.
All right, guys. This is Alicia DeBrell from Insight Media. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.